Greetings, everyone. Pete Pardo here from Sea of Tranquility. Welcome to another edition of Top 10 Songs. Today, we're finally getting to a show on a band that I've been waiting to do for a long time. It's tough when you've got a list that's like yay long of great bands that you want to tackle, for a specific type of show. And the other day, I've been listening to a little bit of this band lately, and I'm like, you know what? I just got to just sit down, put the pedal to the metal, put my damn list together, go out, revisit all the albums, and figure this one out because I couldn't wait any longer to bring you guys Wishbone Ash, my favorite 10 songs, and a lot of honorable mentions. So this is difficult because it's a band that I love a lot, but it's also a band that I have not been a huge fan of this band until like the last 15, 20 years or so. It's not like this is a group that I've been listening to since like the late 70s or the 80s. I basically never listened to Wishbone Ash until like the mid 90s or so, and even then, I had like a 2-disc compilation that I had throughout most of the 90s. So I didn't really start like buying Wishbone Ash albums on CD and really getting into their music till probably like right around to the start of the 2000s. Okay, so or even a little bit later than that. So for me, what I wanted to do, because again, Wishbone Ash, their discography, when you really think about it, I'm kind of new to, new being the last 20 years. It's not like I, know all of their albums, backwards and forwards, blindfolded, that sort of thing, yet anyway, right? Because I'm still kind of new. It's like I don't have 30, 40 years history with some of these albums. 20 is pretty good, 15 or so is pretty good, but a lot of great songs. That's one of the things I always loved about this band is just how great their music is, how hard they are to categorize. And honestly, I think that's one of the reasons why Wishbone Ash were not bigger than they should have been, because they never had an identifiable they never fit in any kind of box. Most bands, it's like, they're a metal band, they're a prog band, they're just a hard rock band, they're a folk band, they're a jazz band, they're a blues band, whatever. And here you have a band that kind of utilize all that stuff. At times, yeah, they sounded kind of proggy, but yeah, they're a little bit folky. Oh, there's some blistering hard rock there on that tune. Then the next one's like a blues tune. Then they do some instrumental stuff, right? Then they do some great stuff with vocals, some pop stuff. They had a little bit of jazz here and there. They kind of did everything. And I think for a lot of people, especially mainstream listeners, that made it a little difficult to kind of embrace this band. But man, some fantastic music released over the years from these guys. Top-notch musicianship. It's really funny how sometimes I go and I'll pull out like one of their albums and I'll listen to it. I'm like, man, why was this album not huge? Why were these guys not on the tips of everyone's tongues? But they did fairly well for themselves. I think very influential as one of the two bands who really jump-started the twin guitar harmony thing, along with the Allman Brothers. I've said that for years. Bands like Thin Lizzy really made it famous. And then you had Judas Priest and Iron Maiden. But I think the two bands that really got this shit going was Wishbone Ash and the Allman Brothers. And Wishbone Ash especially, if you listen to a lot of that Thin Lizzy stuff, and you go listen to those early, Wishbone Ash albums, or most of their albums anyway, it's all right there, right? So anyway, let's get to my top 10. So, I'm going to do it again, guys. I'm going to do a tie for number 10, because I had my top 10 all nice and neat, and then I'm like thinking about another tune, and I'm like, man, I just can't for the life of me not include this song in my top 10, so I just squeezed it in as a tie for number 10. So coming in at number 10, so basically this is my top 11, right? We've got a tie between Living Proof from Just Testing and You See Red from No Smoke Without Fire. You See Red is a tune that I squeezed in at the end because I'm like, that's just such a great anthemic song. It's another example of the multifaceted approach of this band. They could do those great rock anthems with those memorable choruses and all that kind of stuff. I mean, You See Red is just, I go listen to that song, I can't get it out of my head for the next 24, 48 hours. I mean, that's how good it is. So a tie between Living Proof. Living Proof is great too. I love the Just Testing album. It's one of their good kind of Not first bunch of albums, but they had a lot of really great albums as the 70s wound down and the 80s started. That's one of them. Coming in at number 9, The Pilgrim from Pilgrimage, their second album. You got to throw some Wishbone Ash instrumentals out there because they had some great ones, man. And The Pilgrim has got like bluesy, jazzy thing going on there. Just the weaving guitars, man, and Martin Turner's excellent bass. It's just great stuff, I mean, a lot of people look at that first lineup, okay? Steve Upton on drums, Andy Powell and Ted Turner on guitars, Martin Turner on bass and vocals, as the classic lineup. And it is to an extent. I love, Ted Turner left after those first couple of albums, and then Laurie Weisfield joined up, and he's fantastic. I love all the albums with Laurie on co-guitar. He's just a great player, and I thought he worked really, really well with Andy Powell, who's one of my guitar heroes on the Flying V, right? So The Pilgrim, great tune from their second album, Pilgrimage. Coming in at number 8, from one of my favorite albums from the band, There's the Rub, we got Don't Come Back, a sizzling hard rock tune with some kick-ass guitar leads and riffs and all that, those weaving harmony lines. Such a great, I'm telling you, go, if you haven't heard that album, just go Google or go onto YouTube, go on, listen to Don't Come Back. What a great, great tune. Another proof, again, we're talking about the kind of variety that this band always kind of pumped out, and that's a perfect example of how great these guys could do, like, hard rock as well as, the more bluesy, folky, jazzy, and proggy stuff, right? They did it all. Coming in at number 7, from probably their best album and their most well-known album, Argus, got to throw Warrior in there. I have to be a warrior. Another great, majestic kind of hard rock tune, okay, but it's got like that kind of proggy flair. It's got that little folky underpinning. Just a great, majestic kind of pump your fist and throw it up there type of tune, man. Great song. Great album. Coming in at number 6. All right, I'm going to put these two tunes together because they're kind of like it's like an epic track, part 1 and part 2 from No Smoke Without Fire, another really underrated album by the band. The Way of the World, parts 1 and 2. They basically, I look at them as a single track, long track. Man, that's as good as it gets. It's proggy, it's bluesy, and then it's got that majestic kind of like heavy rock thing going. Screaming guitar solos. Just such a great, great, powerful tune with some just sensational, like, musical explorations by the band. Just so, so good. Next, going to go back to Argus. How about The King Will Come? Doesn't get much better than that, right? That whole Argus album is just so damn good. And I love that whole second half of the, it's got that whole kind of concept thing going on. It's great. Love it, love it, love it. Coming in at number 4 from the debut album, which I love a lot. For me, the debut album and Argus are their best albums. Okay, so that's their first and their third albums. And it's not even close. I really hold those two albums in high, high regard. And while they have a lot of great albums that I love a lot, man, Wishbone Ash and Argus are just fucking great. Right? It's great stuff. And my number 4 track from the Wishbone Ash album is Lady Whiskey. Okay? Just, man, like I said, these guys, when they wanted to crank out like bluesy, heavy rock, they could do it with anybody. And that's a perfect example of one. As is my next one, my number 3, from the same album, Queen of Torture. Heavy, blistering guitar riffs, screaming leads, great vocals, rhythm section just pumping away, man. I tell you, Lady Whiskey and Queen of Torture, put them back to back, stands up to anything around that time. I tell you. You heard it here. All right, next, coming in at number 2, my top 2 I love a lot. Back to the Argus album, Sometime World. I absolutely love the vocal harmonies. That song is so catchy. It's got a killer Andy Powell solo at the end of the song to take it all out. There's just like this kind of yearning quality of Sometime World. It starts off kind of folky and it builds and builds. It's got a great vocal to it, from Martin Turner. It's just a great song that always moved me. I almost picked that as my number 1, but my number 1 gets me fired up whenever I hear it. for me, my number one favorite from Wishbone Ash is kind of like Wishbone Ash's answer to Skinner's, Freebird. It's there for, even though this album came out way before Freebird did. I'm talking about Phoenix from the self-titled debut album. I mean, come on, those like blistering guitar lead trade-offs and then, it's just, I mean, Andy Powell and Martin and Ted Turner just shooting guitar leads to the stratosphere. I absolutely love it. It's mostly an instrumental track. It's got a little bit of vocals in it, but it's just an excuse for some sensational melodic guitar solos that are as good as anything you'll hear anywhere else. So Phoenix, my number one favorite song from Wishbone Ash. So now, how about a shitload of honorable mentions? All right, let's go all the way back to the first album. How about Blind Eye? Another thing this band could do is they could do the boogie thing too. Blind Eye is a great kind of bluesy boogie number. People talk about Status Quo, all that stuff. Man, Wishbone Ash doing that shit too, Errors of My Ways. Another kind of great melodic tune with some great vocals, really emotional piece. And then Handy. Handy's a very handy tune, handy good tune. I love Handy as well. From the second album, Pilgrimage, Was dies? Ba-da-ba, 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 da-da-da. Great little scat vocals and kind of jazzy guitar licks. Great. Jailbait, another kind of really good bluesy boogie number. Alone is another great tune. From Argus, got to throw Time Was in there. Blowin' Free, another kind of bluesy rock rave up and boogie. That's a favorite of a lot of people. Some great guitar solo in that song. Throw Down the Sword, another majestic rocker. From Wishbone 4, how about Ballad of the Beacon? Doctor, it's a great tune. Sorrel and Rock and Roll Widow, good kind of bluesy anthem right there. From There's the Rub, how about Silver Shoes, Persephone, love Persephone, Hometown, and the awesome, almost made my top 10, FUBB, which of course stands for Fucked Up Beyond Belief. That's got some it's an instrumental, it's got some sensational guitar work from Andy Powell and Laurie Weisfield. Great, great tune. From Locked In, how about Rest in Peace, Moonshine, Half Past Lovin'. Love Half Past Lovin'. From New England, Mother of Pearl, catchy tune, catchy rock anthem. Another song that probably is not far from my top 10. Runaway, love Runaway. Lorelei, and how about the instrumental Outward Bound? Gorgeous, gorgeous stuff. From Front Page News, the title track. Also just misses my top 10. I just love Front Page News. It's kind of mellow. It's kind of like, dreamy type of thing. It's got a great chorus. Love Front Page News. Midnight Dancer, Come In From the Rain, Right or Wrong, great rocker. Heartbeat and the Dynamite Diamond Jack. All right. From No Smoke Without Fire, how about Ships in the Sky, Stand and Deliver, killer tune. Anger and Harmony, Like a Child, great stuff. From the underrated Just Testing album. If you like those albums with the flying V's on the cover, that's a good one. Jeff Young, are you listening? Haunting Me, Helpless. Helpless is a great tune. New Rising Star and Lifeline. All right. From Number the Brave, the one and only album they did with Mr. John Wetton on bass and vocals. Kicks on the Street, Open Road, Rainstorm, the blistering That's That. My favorite tune off that album, it's, I believe, the only song that Wetton sang lead vocals on. That is a killer track. That was in my early top 10. It got booted at the end, but man, it's right up there. Go listen to That's That from the Number of the Brave album. It's fantastic. Also, the title track, Number of the Brave, is great. From the Twin Barrels Burning album, which is an underrated album. It's probably their heaviest album. And again, I think the band was like, you got the new wave of British heavy metal in full swing, and Wishbone Ash trying to stay relevant in the early 80s. They figured, let's do a heavy rock album kind of like this stuff. And the funny thing is, I think like a lot of like longtime Wishbone Ash listeners and fans were like turned off by the heaviness of that album. But I think it's a great album. It's like the whole album is really, really solid. You got Engine Overheat, which is fantastic. You got Genevieve, great. Me and My Guitar, blistering tune. Hold On, Streets of Shame, No More Lonely Nights. No More Lonely Nights should have been a hit single for the band. That is a good, hard rockin', but still kind of accessible track. Love it. Angels Have Mercy. Okay, I'm going to kind of end there because they've got so many albums. Okay, a couple good tunes from Raw to the Bone. Again, Raw to the Bone and Twin Barrels Burning, I think, would just kind of shock people because they were kind of, Wishbone Ash trying to stay relevant in the early 80s, doing heavier material, and people were like, oh, I'm not sure if I like that, whatever. Then, the band kind of started, breaking up, members leaving, all this kind of stuff. They had a lot of turmoil. They released a whole bunch of albums. I will say, I've really enjoyed some of their last few albums, really classy stuff. And I'm not going to go name a lot of songs because we'll be here forever. But I do want to give a shout out to like the Blue Horizon album, really tasty. And I know this is mainly Andy Powell's band now. I do want to say, Martin Turner's solo band, okay, is fantastic as well. What I think is really cool here, while I would love everybody to kind of kiss and make up and do a cohesive, united Wishbone Ash again, I don't think that's ever going to happen because, of course, a lot of ugly legal and courtroom stuff have happened over the years, right? Andy Powell's now got the rights to the name. But Martin Turner has a fantastic band doing Wishbone Ash style material that's really, really good. They've released a couple studio albums that are fantastic, sound just like classic Wishbone Ash, right? But the Wishbone Ash band, fronted by Andy Powell, the Blue Horizon album is really good. Elegant Stealth is damn good. The Power of Eternity and Clandestiny, all really good albums. Really solid, okay? You can't go wrong with any of them. They kind of carry over some of that, that classic sound with a more modern style. Still, you get great dual harmony guitar work, great vocals, catchy melodies, real quality material. So, it's almost like, there are some like not so good Wishbone Ash albums. I'm thinking like the late 80s and the early 90s. There's a couple that are like, they're okay. But I think that all the classic stuff up until like the early mid 80s, very strong. And the last bunch of albums they released, very strong. So let me recap my top 10. All right. Coming in at number 1, Phoenix. Number 2, Sometime World. Number 3, Queen of Torture. Number 4, Lady Whiskey. Number 5, The King Will Come. The King Will Come from Argus. Number 6, The Way of the World, parts 1 and 2. I look at them as one. 7, Warrior. Number 8, Don't Come Back. Number 9, The Pilgrim. And number 10, a tie between Living Proof and You See Red. There you have my top 10 songs from the majestic, wonderful Wishbone Ash, a truly underrated band, in my opinion, that should have been and should be huge. If you've never listened to Wishbone Ash before, like I said, if you love fantastic dual harmony guitar stuff, and if you like bands that mix a lot of styles, hard rock, blues, prog, jazz, pop, folk, they kind of throw it all together in a blender, out it comes. You can't go wrong with so many of their albums and songs. I mean, just a really fantastic band. That their music is just so good. It's like the older I get, the more I listen to them, and the more I'm like puzzled that I wasn't listening to them when I was like 13, 14, 15, 20 even, that sort of thing. So, but anyway, visit us on the web at www.seatranquility.org. We're on Facebook, we're on Twitter, of course, we're here on YouTube every day. Tune in tomorrow and Friday for more. Actually, tomorrow is Friday. Tune in tomorrow for another classic album war show. All right. But in the meantime, put together your top 10 songs for Wishbone Ash. Curious to see what everybody else thinks. Remember, there's no right or wrong here. It's just based on preference, what we like. But be interested to see like what some of you come up with. So until next time, guys, thanks for joining us. Spread the news. Tell your friends. Make sure everybody subscribes. Make sure you set up those notifications so you get an email every time I post something new. You don't want to miss an episode. But if you do, I've got the playlist all jam-packed and organized with stuff. So you should be able to go into those playlists and find whatever it is you're looking for, okay? Because we're coming up on 5 years. It will be our 5-year anniversary here on YouTube next month, all right? And I'm trying to plan a kind of special show for that. So be on the lookout for that sometime in September. All right, guys? Until next time, we'll see you again. Take care. Bye-bye.